Hello again and welcome. So, I've been having a little bit of fun today playing around with ChatGPT, and I wanted to go through some of this because I think it's pretty interesting. And so, I was watching, what was I watching here? I was watching this podcast about natural language, symbols, and grounding. And the question that was asked was something like, what makes a what what would give a large language model agency? And my initial reaction to this was that the system would have to be self-prompting. And so I came in here to ChatGPT and I tried to give it a prompt that would start a series of prompts. So I said, create a prompt that would be the first prompt in a series of prompts that considered the question, what is consciousness and artificial intelligence? Tell me something about it, then give me the next prompt. Make sure the next prompt also gives back information plus a prompt, etc. And so it comes back and it says the first prompt in a series of prompts about the question, what is consciousness, is in an artificial intelligence might be consciousness is the ability to experience and perceive one's surroundings and internal states. In the context of artificial intelligence, it refers to the ability of a machine or computer program to exhibit intelligent behavior that is similar to human consciousness. The next prompt of this series might be there is an ongoing debate about whether or not artificial intelligence can truly possess consciousness as it is currently understood in humans. Some argue that consciousness arises from complex computations and patterns in the brain, and that it is possible for an artificial intelligence to inhibit or to exhibit consciousness in a similar way. Others argue that consciousness is a fundamentally human trait that cannot be replicated in a machine. And so at this point, it stopped giving information back and just started giving prompts. So somehow my initial prompt, where was it? Up here, this initial prompt was not a perfect prompt. Because if I had prompted this correctly, it would have given me some information, and then it would have given me the next prompt that should be asked. Uh, and that prompt would include a request for information about it, and then a new prompt. That, in other words, something recursive would happen that would continue to give me information and a new prompt every time. And that at some point that failed. And I can't really tell why, but this is an example of prompt engineering, which is going to be very interesting. And I'm looking at this ChatGPT, which is free and available through OpenAI, and you can give an up or a down here, up a thumbs up or thumbs down for the replies. And so I'm thinking what OpenAI is really wanting to do here is they're trying to build a data set for self-prompting. Think of it this way: if you have two of these chatbots and they start talking to each other, they will be prompting each other back and forth. And once you have that, once you have a real conversation going, you've got something going on like an internal state of mind. And I think this is quite fascinating. Uh, so at this point, I stepped back a bit and started asking some questions about consciousness. And let's see, I got here. Can a history of a conversation aid consciousness? And it comes back and says it's possible that a history of a conversation could provide some insight into the consciousness of an artificial intelligence. By examining the types of questions that AI has asked and its responses to them, we may be able to gain some understanding of its thought processes and decision making abilities. However, it is important to note that consciousness is a complex and multifaceted concept, and that a history of a conversation alone may not be sufficient to fully understand an AI's consciousness. So, my prompt was not well written because it didn't really answer the question I wanted answered. And this is the tricky thing about going into a large language model. You have to be very clever about the way you ask things. So I ask here, does AI consciousness require the AI to be self-prompting? It is not clear if a history of a conversation would aid in the development of consciousness in an artificial intelligence. So first of all, it's remembering the former question. So it's trying to put this question into the context of the former question, which is, in general, a good thing. However, there should be a way in the prompt to have it not do that, to have it start thinking anew. Some may argue that the ability to learn and adapt based on past experiences is an important component of consciousness, while others may argue that consciousness arises from other factors, such as complex computations and patterns in the brain. As for whether or not self-prompting is necessary for an AI to be considered conscious, it is also unclear. Some may argue that self-awareness and the ability to initiate actions on one's own are important aspects of consciousness, while others may disagree. Ultimately, the definition and requirements of consciousness in an artificial intelligence are subject to debate and may vary on the perspective of the individual discussing the topic. So this is also true. Uh, Not exactly what I was asking, or it wasn't getting the answer I want, but that's all right. It doesn't have to do that. And then I said, what aspects are open to debate and what are just facts? It's not clear whether there are any aspects of understanding of consciousness in AI that are not open to debate. The concept of consciousness in AI is still a topic of active research and discussion in the field, and there is no consensus on a single definition or set of criteria for what constitutes consciousness in an AI system. As such, it's difficult to say which aspects of the understanding of consciousness in AI are considered facts and which are open to debate. All right, so what this is pretty much saying here is that people are morons and they can't agree on anything. So there's a lot of word salad out there, and nobody's hitting the mark. Which idea of consciousness in AI is most consistent? There's no consensus on the definition of consciousness in artificial intelligence, so it is difficult to say which idea is the most consistent. Some argue that consciousness arises from complex computations and patterns of the brain, and it's possible for an artificial intelligence to exhibit consciousness in a similar way. Others argue that consciousness is a fundamentally human trait that cannot be replicated in a machine. Still, others believe that consciousness is an emergent property of complex systems and that it could potentially arise in artificial intelligence systems. Ultimately, the question of consciousness in artificial intelligence remains a topic of debate. Which ideas in consciousness in AI are the most statistically probable? It is difficult to say which ideas in consciousness in AI are the most statistically probable, as the concept of consciousness in AI is still largely theoretical and has not been extensively studied. Additionally, the concept of consciousness itself is still a subject of debate among philosophers and scientists. So really, this is coming back at me every time I try to pin it down. It's telling me it's impossible to pin it down because people haven't agreed yet on what is the case. This is a theoretical concept. So therefore, I suppose I could. I asked it earlier, sort of a question. Well, what do you think is the best? And it comes back and says, I don't have opinions. I'm a large language model. I don't have opinions, but I'm, going to try to get you information that's helpful. And so then what are the main attributes of consciousness? Main attributes of consciousness are subjective experience, self-awareness, and the ability to perceive and respond to stimuli. These attributes are not fully understood and are subject to ongoing research, blah, blah, blah. How are these commonly defined? The main attributes of consciousness are generally considered to be self-awareness, the ability to perceive and respond to one's environment, and the ability to have subjective experience and emotions. These attributes are commonly defined through a combination of psychological and philosophical theories and research, as well as through observations of human and animal behavior. What are the constituent parts of subjective experience? The constituent parts of subjective experience are often thought to include sensory experience, emotions, thoughts, and consciousness itself. Some philosophers and scientists also argue that the self and free will are essential parts of subjective experience. These different aspects of subjective experience are often intertwined and can be difficult to separate from one another. And this is amazing. I say, isn't that a tautology? And it says, yes, constituent parts of subjective experience is a tautological statement because subjective experience is a concept that refers to the way things are experienced by an individual. And the constituent parts of this concept would be the individual components that make up that experience. In other words, constituent parts of subjective experience are the things that make up subjective experience. Because the phrase constituent parts of subjective experience is a redundant way of referring to the same thing, it's considered a tautology. This is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This model completely turned this around on me. And, I'm trying to see how smart it is. And it's saying to me, you're not terribly smart at all. I absolutely love this. Anyway, I just wanted to share this with you. Uh, things are changing very quickly. This model is so intelligent. I'm just blown away by it. This is not word salad that it's giving back. These are well thought out statements, and if you try to pin it down on something that it doesn't know, it's not saying, oh, this is my opinion. If you go and you get your training data from Reddit or something like that, or from social media, and you ask for an opinion, you'll get an opinion. I guarantee you. Nobody's going to turn around and say, I don't give opinions. This says that. This says, I do not give opinions. I'm trying to give you factual responses. That is intelligence. And yeah, things are happening very quickly. This is this is something that OpenAI has given the world. Given it. They're not charging for this. They're giving it, and this is going to have an amazing, amazing outcome. What's going to come from this? I'm just so pleased by it. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I hope you found this helpful. Bye bye.